Hello, folks. My name is Jeff Koshin West, founder of Integral Transformative Bodywork. My pronouns are he and him. Today, we are joined once again together to explore ITB Sunday School. So welcome to ITB Sunday School. It's wonderful to have you. Thank you very much. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for participating. Thanks for remembering us. Thanks for considering us. And thanks in general for you making the great choice to consider yourself, consider your reality, consider your existence and how you perceive the world and your philosophical orientation. Thank you for entrusting myself and ITB with kind of supporting that investigation. So I very much thank you for that. So today has been, today marks the last installment for September. Today is September 27th. Today we're talking about frequently asked questions, FAQ. Frequently asked questions regarding the two foundational practices in ITB. The two foundational practices are shadow work and witness consciousness meditation. Witness consciousness meditation we shorten up because witness consciousness meditation is a mouthful. We shorten up to WCM. So when you hear WCM in the future, that's what we're talking about, witness consciousness meditation. So here we are, frequently asked questions about the two foundational practices. And as I was about to say, all of September was dedicated to this topic, like what are the two foundational practices? So the past 3 Sundays when we've gathered, we've talked about 3 or 4, I don't know, 3 or 4, I don't know, whatever. The past Sundays in September, we've gathered and inquired into what are the foundational practices of ITB and why they matter and what they are and what to do with them and all that jazz. So here we are gathering for the last Sunday in September, and we're going to investigate this now, okay? All right, so here we go. These questions are questions that I've heard a lot, but then also in the prior week through communication, we have gathered a few of these questions from the general population. We didn't get a lot from the general population, but we got some questions. We got some questions. There's some good questions. We appreciate the questions. Any questions that come through, it's beautiful. And we don't technically have anybody on this recording right now. This is technically a Zoom meeting. So we are recording this Zoom meeting right now. So we may have a couple folks that pop in along the way. It usually takes folks a second to hop onto our broadcasts. So that's kind of how it is. So we will most likely have some folks join us along the way, and they may have some questions they may have. But anywho, let's move forwards and let's look at some of these frequently asked questions. So we're going to split these apart first. So the two foundational practices of ITB are shadow work and WCM. We're going to start with shadow work first. So what are some frequently asked questions about shadow work and about this as a practice? Well, of course, this whole dialogue here, this whole recording lecture question situation is expecting that you've already got some understanding of what shadow work is. So if you do not know what shadow work is or what we mean by WCM, you need to go to the other videos, okay? Because this is this lecture is based off of, this conversation is based off of the idea that you've already joined us for at least 2 of the 3 having to do with what the heck are the two foundational practices. So if you haven't done that, don't watch this video. It's probably going to be confusing. Go to the first one of September. I think it was the 6th of September, something like that. And that one explains, it's a basic overview of what the two foundational practices are and why they're in place. So if you haven't watched the other ones in September, don't watch this one. Go to the beginning of September and November 6th, or whatever the first September one we have of 2020 is. Go to that one and watch that one, because this is going to be confusing. So first question having to do with shadow work, frequently asked questions. Here's a question. This is a question that comes up a fair bit in shadow work and ITB community. People say, hey, Jeff, how often should I do shadow work? And in this case, my suggestion is at least once a week, at least once a week. If you are in and the adjustment I make to that is, if you are a person in power, you need to be doing more. So a person in power can be not just like a business owner or a government official or a police officer or a manager or something like that. If you're a parent, If you're a parent, you need to be doing, you're a person in power. The parental position is a position of power. So you need to be doing your shadow work more than once a week, at least once a week, but probably more, 2 or 3 times a week. God knows when it comes to those types of situations where there's parenting involved of other human beings, or management and guidance of other human beings, holy crap, there's more than enough opportunities for your shadow in your shadow material to start to pop up and start talking to you. So it is totally a good idea to be doing shadow work on a regular basis when it comes to parenting. My hope is that you would have been doing shadow work before you got yourself into the position of being a parent, before you chose that position or you found yourself in that position of parent. You would have done shadow work before that, so you had some kind of context and understanding of what shadow work was instead of after the fact. But nevertheless, life is what it is. Yeah, things unfold the way they do. So we're just going to honor that. So if you're in a position of power, you should be doing shadow work like 2 or 3 times a week. And depending how much power that position carries, you should probably be doing it more than 2 or 3 times a week. So say you are a manager over several people, and those people very much rely on how you're managing them. Say if you're in a job situation, you should be doing shadow work every day or every other day, at least about 10, 15 minutes of it. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out type of a situation, but you do need to be checking yourself on a regular basis. That may seem like a lot, but I mean, consider this. I think it's really important for us, those of us that are in positions of power, to be reflecting on our behavior on a regular basis. It's important to question our behavior. It's important to question our motives. It's important to question our instinctual or impulsive reactions to things that arise. I think that's of great importance. Because as we've talked about in these classes, the reactionary conversation, the reactionary material is actually really problematic. It's the reactionary stuff that's based off of history, that's based off of past traumas, and we really need you to pay attention to that stuff. That's something we ought to be paying attention to. That's not something we should be sweeping under the rug. So it may sound like a lot, but it's important for you to second guess. It's important for you to investigate. And we suggest that this is something that you do on a regular basis. No matter how confident you feel about a situation, we ought to be considering, have I seen the wholeness of the situation? That's how we ought to start the kind of dialogue. How many perspectives can I take in relationship to this situation, and then make decisions based off of that based off of that data that we gather from those different perspectives. So how often should you do shadow work? Your ass should be doing shadow work on a regular basis. If you are, if this sounds daunting, just start with what you can start with. Start with once a week. Sit down once a week and just start doing some of the plans we've suggested about doing some journal work, working with some voices. Go to your counselor, go to your ITB coach, go to someone who understands shadow, and please, 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 start to investigate that material. It's of great importance. So that's what we think as far as the frequency is concerned. Do all styles work? And so this was the next question. All styles means, do we have all styles? Do all styles of self-reflection or investigation work? And quote unquote work is in quotation marks there. What we have found is, even if you have a relatively incomplete system of doing shadow work, of doing self-reflection, it has some positive benefit. The reason we pick the voice dialoguing work and the reason we pick 3210 shadow work from Integral Theory, the reason we pick those guys is because, and we have others that we use in ITB, but the reason we pick those techniques is because they have the greatest potential for unveiling and for revealing and excavating, excavating and revealing areas where your blind spots are, where there's problems at. So not all styles work the same, okay? So one of the ways that people sometimes pass off shadow work is they spend some time maybe reflecting on some behavior, and they think about it for a while and they wonder, oh, this is a not so great thing, and maybe I should try and do something different. And that's about as far as they go. They question it. They see the problem and they question it, and there's not much action after that. And that is, for me, that's very scary, because that's what some people consider shadow work. They think, cool, I'm done, I self-reflected, I saw a pattern, now I'm going to just continue on and make a just try and choose on a regular basis how that fits in. And for me, that's like a quarter of what you ought to be doing. For us in ITB, that's just the start. Okay, that does need, especially when we notice patterns, when we're doing shadow work, if we notice reactionary behavior, it's not like, cool, I noticed it, I'm a good boy, good girl, good person, well, yay me. The idea is like, holy shit, all right, I see this reactionary pattern. I need to understand where it comes from. I need to spend some time on a daily basis over the next several weeks to months investigating how that pattern, that philosophical orientation invades other areas of my life. And then I need to start investigating how that goes. And then I need to start getting some idea about what is a behavior I need to choose otherwise. What is a better way to make choice? What's a better behavior to have? And what are some of the deeper history and story and experiences that are associated with this reactionary behavior? And then you have to start applying that stuff. So true, what we consider real shadow work or true shadow work in ITB is not just excavating and unveiling, you know, some shitty behavior you perform or a really warped philosophical perspective you have. The idea is you need to uncover that, and then you need to actually do some shit in regards to that. So it's great that you found it. I mean, we want to applaud you and honor the fact that you find it. And that's, like I said, that's step 1 of 4. So don't get caught up with patting yourself on the back and saying, oh, I'm so fabulous for finding this reactionary behavior or this impulsive, shitty behavior. That's great, but don't get caught up in that. You need to continue to pursue. And this is where most folks will fall short, is they have the first of 4 taken care of. They think they've achieved their goal, and they just kind of put it down. They don't consistently look. They don't consistently inquire. They don't consistently and get someone else to help them inquire into what's going on and what's the behavior and what's the history and where does it live in other relationships. Because guarantee you, if you start to go past just low-hanging, what we call easy stuff, is low-hanging fruit shadow, stuff that's relatively easy to make contact with you, maybe it agitates you a little bit, but it doesn't really, it agitates you a little bit, but it's not serious. It's not something that's not a real, it's not a foundational worldview type of shadow material. This low-hanging fruit is great, but if you really come in contact with the heavier stuff, if you really get in contact with the pillars of your identity that are fabrications and falsehoods, you probably need help. You need help kind of getting your head around them, getting your heart around them, staying focused in relationship to them. Because remember this is something that's important to understand. Your identity is not completely on board with this. There's a really good reason why you disowned this material. There's a really good reason why you buried this in the backyard or locked it in a closet or locked it in the cellar. There's a good reason why you did that. And so you have defense mechanisms, portions of your identity, these voices, these components, these elements of your identity will actually have like protection practices, ways of diverting you away from getting closer and closer and closer to those usually very painful, very uncomfortable types of experiences. So components of your identity don't want you to uncover shadow, because that's where pain is, that's where discomfort is, that's where you know, a realization of your deep loneliness or sadness or some type of major discomfort is. So it doesn't want you to find your way there. Okay. So this is, and since that's the case, since that's a reality, a component of your identity doesn't want you to find those things. That's why a coach, a teammate, some type of group or counselor is supposed to be there in order to kind of support you in pursuing that stuff. Because that will be supportive. That'll be wonderful for you kind of staying on task and keeping your eye on the issue and actually uncovering the reality of the situation, the enormity of the situation, and the depth of and breadth of pain that comes with that. It's when you come, what we have found is that when you start to get closer and closer to your pain, it does help to have people around you in support of you as you go towards this. This is a daunting task in the first place. To do it alone is kind of an issue. Oh, and look at that. What a convenient situation. The next question, can I do it alone? God, I'm just so good at this. All right, so can I do it alone? Yes, you can do it alone. I mean, that's helpful. It's not a good idea. If you are the only one within reach, then yeah, that's okay. You can do it on your own, and you should be doing part of this on your own. But I would not, especially in the long term, I would not do this alone. All right, I would not do this alone because we don't suggest people do this alone because it's really easy to trick yourself. Like I was just talking about a second ago, these components of your identity are wicked smart. They're incredibly crafty and insidious in a lot of situations. So they will do everything they can at times, including causing you to break out in hives, have different types of bodily reactions, psychosomatic experiences. You may, notice really powerful addiction experiences surfacing. And I'm not just talking about an impulse towards an addictive substance like an actual substance like alcohol or quote unquote drugs, but also addictive behavior. You may want to binge watch television. You may want to binge eat. You may want to get so excited about your next creative endeavor. It's really sneaky stuff that we have to be mindful of. The going towards substances is oftentimes the easiest of things to see. The hard stuff to see is the things that we have deemed positive that are also reactionary behavior that divert you from actually coming clean about what's going on. So this is of great importance. This is why we don't do this alone, is because we do need support along the way. And as I was touching on just a minute ago, as you go closer and closer and closer to shadow material, especially the heavy stuff, possible cornerstones or pillars of your identity, as you get closer and closer to those things, your body may have more intense reactionary experiences. Your body mind may get that much more agitated. And thus, you're probably going to need help staying focused during that period of time. Also, as you get closer and closer to that material, the pain is going to be there. The pain, the discomfort, whatever flavor of pain is there, whatever emotional material is around those memories and that pain, that's going to hurt. And you are a strong person. You are a person of integrity. You are a person that can handle what's going on. And it's easier to handle what's going on when you have a teammate there, when you have someone next to you that kind of knows what the hell you're going through because they've done it on their own. They've done this themselves. Someone who knows what this is like and what person can go through and what this can feel like. And it very much helps to have that person next to you and coaching you and cheering you on and nurturing and supporting your process as you go. It's not easy stuff. That's the reason why nobody fucking does it, is because it's unpleasant. Anyhow, can I do it alone? Yeah, sure. You can do some of your regular practice alone, but you need to bring that to somebody. Who do you bring it to? You bring it to an ITB coach. You bring it to a counselor. You bring it to a person who is bound by confidentiality. You bring it to a group that knows this information. Bring it to people who are aware of what these things are like and can handle these conversations and are there for you, not in any other way, but there for you just to support you as you go through this this flavor of experience, this flavor of hell, as we like to talk about it. So keep that in mind. Our next question kind of is bound to this question. Should I do this work with family, romantic partners, or friends? And the quick answer to this is don't you dare. Don't you dare do this with them. First and foremost, when it comes to family, actually, let me back up for a second. The people you should be doing this with are people who are trained like you, who have the same interest as you, people who know the rules of supporting you and nurturing you, not doing some type of analyzation, not doing some type of trying to fix you. When you do shadow work, you really do need to, we do suggest you observe certain consent rules and guidelines as far as doing shadow work is concerned. And so I strongly suggest you find people who are educated in this information, who have experience in this education, in this information, who have done these activities and supported other people, and you all agree on a way to relate to each other during these activities, during revealing shadow and working shadow together. I would look for that population. If you can't find that population, that's what ITB is here for. Pick one of our coaches, pick myself, get one of our coaches, one of our stewards. That's what we're here for. Go to your counselor with this shit. I, in my own personal experience with my own counselors and coaches, nothing tickles them more than for us to sit down with my journal and me start to reveal some of the shit that I find during some of these 3-2-1-0 practices or voice practices, and their trained perspective, listening to it, watching me, and being able to put together information that I, just by doing it on my own, completely are unaware of. All right. So it is extremely valuable to do this with people who are trained in this stuff, who have some skill in this stuff. It doesn't mean you have to only go to a counselor. I mean, in ITB, we train groups to work with each other on this stuff. We set guidelines and we train folks to do this stuff. All of our stewards, I mean, in our mentorship and our stewards, this is the place that we do a lot of those things. And so you can have a group that gets trained in this stuff, and that's what we offer oftentimes. But do not go to family, friends, or romantic partners. The reason we should not go to family, friends, and romantic partners, yes, you love them. Let me just clear this up. Yes, you love them. Yes, you care for them. Yes, you do trust them. But the reality of family, friends, and romantic partners is that there's a high likelihood that they are going to be affected by what you share with them. They may have a hard time listening to it and then not treating you differently afterwards. This is a common thing that happens with families. Think of how much your parents care for you, or how much trauma you may have between you and your parent. If you start to reveal some of this stuff or do some of this stuff with them, this can get really out of hand really quickly. Most of the time, if you come from a family where if you're doing this with a parent who's very loving, who does care for you, as soon as you start to bring it up, there's a very high likelihood that they're not going to be able to actually hear it as a person. They're just going to be in parent mode because they've parented you. It's a role that they just fall into when they're with you. So if you are the child and they are your parent, then they're going to have an extremely hard time not being in the role of wanting to make you better, make you feel better, fix the situation. And that's not what we need during shadow work. We don't need any of that shit. And so we do not suggest going to a family member. For that same reason, we suggest not doing it with a romantic partner. A romantic partner is going to be deeply invested in who you are. The romantic partner and family member may actually be not so healthy, all right? Not so capable of holding this information and then not using it against you, all right? So this is an unfortunate fact of our relationships. You may trust your parents, you may trust your romantic partner. The fact is that they may not know how to carry this information. They may not know how to be trusted by you. Now, this may seem odd that if just because you trust them should not work out nicely. No, not necessarily at all. We find that couples sharing shadow material there needs to be some education on both sides of the partnership. So when I say you shouldn't do shadow work with a partner, what I mean is that you should be doing your own shadow work, and if you want to share that stuff later on with a partner that is informed and also does their own shadow work, this works really nicely. Once again, you're not doing shadow work with that person. You are maybe sharing findings afterwards. You're kind of sharing them to deepen intimacy, to deepen connection, to deepen the relationship. That's totally fine. And you can do that with your friends. You can do that with your family members. But we want to be really mindful of who we're sharing this information with, because it is very private. It is very, It is very much oftentimes our own personal perspective and our own personal feelings. And when we go to find this stuff, when we go to uncover shadow material, because it's just a voice in us that's expressing, a family member, a friend, a romantic partner may actually have a hard time understanding, oh, this is just a voice inside of you. This is just a component of you that's reacting this way. This isn't what's really your primary orientation right now. So this can get really confusing for the family member, for the romantic partner, for the friend that doesn't understand any of this shit. Okay. So this is where you're going to run into problems, and this is where it's problematic. In the psychotherapeutic or in the psychological world, we talk about these conversation of roles where if a person has more than one role in your life, we call that a dual relationship. So a typical dual relationship is maybe you have a friend of yours that's also a contractor that builds porches and decks and stuff like that, and then you hire that friend to do your porch and deck or deck. So then you have not only the role of the friendship, but then you also have the role of that professional situation, which is you've hired them to do that deck. That's what we would call a dual relationship. And dual relationships are fine. It's just that they're a little bit more sticky than singular relationships. So in the healthcare world, the helping fields, we suggest that if there is going to be a dual relationship, there needs to be a lot of conversation about the dual relationship. There needs to be a lot of transparency. And if you are in a position of doing very serious types of support and healthcare and helping health and helping industry stuff, then you should avoid dual relationships as best as you can, because they can be problematic. They can be so sticky. They can really skew things to a certain extent. And so when you are doing shadow work with a friend, with a romantic partner, or with a parent, that is going to be a dual relationship. It's going to ask of them therapeutic skills. It's going to ask of them skills that have to do with being a supportive, safe, nurturing role that you're going to ask them to play. If they don't know how to do that, you're putting them in a rough position. You're also most likely setting yourself up to get hurt or to kind of have a fucked up situation arise. So we suggest that if you want to do this, if you and your friend want to do this, if maybe you and some other friends want to pursue these types of things, we got to create some boundaries. We got to have some education so we have common language, and we got to create some opportunity to have some very specific boundaries and modes of being around each other for these events, for these activities. If you don't, it's just going to be a matter of time before things blow up in your face, and they may get really hairy, and you may lose a friend, and that's the last thing, or a romantic partner, or really have a hard time with a family member. So that's the last thing we want to do, but we have to be mindful of that stuff, okay? So should you do it with a family, romantic partner, or friend, I mean, be very, very, very careful as far as that's concerned. And if you do want to do that, I would say friends and romantic partners are probably great resources. Parents have been your parents have been your parents for your whole life. And so that's a long time. And a parent is going to have a really hard time stepping back from that role as a loving and nurturing and caring parent that wants to fix their kid's life. So that may be one that you just report back, that you just share findings within a certain safe space with each other. And that may be one where, like I said, you just kind of report information that you found about your history and about your perceptions of things that have happened in the family and your traumas and stuff like that. So once again, if you're wanting to do this with friends and romantic partners, just make sure everybody's on the same page. Get some education in this stuff. Hire some other folks a counselor or some other coach or some other group to support you in everybody having the same language and having some understanding about this stuff. Join a group instead of making your friends and romantic partner do it. All right, so those are some questions that we have had come up with shadow work, commonly come up on a regular basis. So that's that. If any of you watching this right now have questions that have come up that we haven't covered about shadow work, please, excuse me, please feel free to reach out to me at Embodying ITB gmail.com and write down that you have a question about, mention the video that you're watching, the frequently asked questions about the 2 foundational practices, and then pose your question having to do with this material. And I will try and respond as soon as possible. I usually get about 24 hours these days. So within 24 hours, you'll probably hear from myself. So please, if you have a question, reach out, embodyingitb@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to respond as best as I can, okay? All right. So now we're going to move on to WCM, Witness Consciousness Meditation. All right. So frequently asked questions about WCM. So this is kind of similar to the shadow work. How often should I do it? What's the frequency? And how long should I do it? So when we're doing witness consciousness meditation, this WCM, this style that we suggest, comes from the Rinzai Zen Zazen practice. So this style of practice, we suggest at least 20 minutes a sit, okay? So if you're going to sit in Zazen, which is just sitting, if you're going to do WCM consciousness, if you're going to do WCM meditation, goodness, I have a hard time with it. If you're going to do the WCM style that we suggest, then we want you to sit at least 20 minutes per sit, okay? How often should you sit? The best suggestion would be every day, okay? So every day, sit for 20 minutes in Zazen. You don't have to be sitting on the ground, cross-legged. You can sit in a chair. It doesn't really matter. We don't suggest lying down. Most people fall asleep because most of us are very, very tired and exhausted these days and need extra sleep because of the amount of stress that we're going through. So don't lay down for this. Sit down in a chair, on the ground, cross-legged, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just sit and be still, be silent, and practice this type of Zazen practice. And if you're, once again, having trouble finding some kind of resource for that, here at ITB on the 2nd and 4th Monday of every month, we do a gathering, Mondo Monday meditation group. So you can join us online and you'll get to see that stuff happening, and you'll get some guidance about what we're talking about when it comes to WCM. So that's how often you ought to be doing it. If life is a little bit more intense, you should be doing it longer, 30 or 40 minutes every day. The least I would do a week would be, I mean, if you're having a hard time scheduling this stuff, I would say you should be doing it about 3 times a week, okay? Every other day, you should be doing at least 20 minutes. If the best case scenario would be 30 or 40 minutes. Now, most of us can't sit for 20 minutes. Maybe your body starts hurting or different things along those lines. Or it's just not a muscle that we've exercised. So what we suggest is start with 20 minutes, do that for about a week to 2 weeks, and then kick it up to 30 minutes. And just slowly grow in increments in relationship to that stuff. With WCM, what we notice is that our ability to participate in this experience kind of builds, similar to if you're wanting to build up your bicep muscles, you're going to do bicep curls. You will build that strength because it seems to be an actual portion of our identity, portion of our humanity that can get stronger. So you will be able to build that strength, and you will be able to move up 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes as long as you want to do it. And so you will build up that strength, and that is of great importance. That's very, very, very helpful stuff. And so that's how often you ought to be doing it, at least 3 times a week, at least 20 minutes every time you do it. You will see effects, even if you just do it 3 times a week. You will see greater effects if you're doing it every day. So we suggest that you do at least 20 minutes every sit 3 times a week, or every other day, I should say. It doesn't have to be in any specific part of the day. So if you do it at the end of the day, or you do it at the beginning of the day, you do it at the middle of the day, whatever you have time to fit into your schedule, whatever works for you, go ahead and do that. Feel it out, see what works for you. It doesn't have to be, there's no hard and fast rule that says you have to do it at this portion of the day, at least in our tradition. So just as long as you can fit it in, as long as it's something that you prioritize and you build your day around, that's of great importance. Okay, we see benefits, we see power coming from that experience. So that's that question about frequency and how much. Another question we often get is, why should I be doing primarily WCM? In ITB, it's a foundational practice. WCM is a foundational practice because it complements what we do in the rest of the pillars. Okay, it complements what we do in the rest of the pillars by giving us a reminder of our natural condition. Okay, what happens in the WCM model is that we start to practice witnessing, just residing as witness and watching the human experience occur. Sensations arise, emotions arise, thoughts pass, creative impulses occur, different things come through, different memories come through, different data of the human experience arises and falls away. So we want to kind of build our strength to just simply witness that stuff. And the primary reason is because it contributes very, very, very dramatically to our recovery and trauma recovery experience. So when we're doing that shadow work, when we're doing any kind of this component of recovery, what witness awareness, what residing as witness provides us is the opportunity to simply receive whatever's arising. So it's a very open-hearted practice. So if pain arises, we receive the pain. If sadness arises, we receive in our heart that sadness. If joy arises, we receive that joy in our heart. If confusion, anger, a memory, creativity, any kind of thing kind of pops up in this human experience, we simply receive it in our heart. Now I say simply receive it in the heart. This is actually a hard fucking thing to do for a lot of folks. But no matter what arises, the point is that no matter what arises, we receive it at the heart. And that's the name of the game. That's the practice we suggest we begin this process with. And the reason we do that is because, like I said, it contributes dramatically to the recovery process. And every one of us has to recover. Every one of us has a history of trauma of some variety or another. And so it behooves us to do this practice and be able to recover in this way. It also contributes to the personal transformation process. It also contributes to becoming and emerging as a deeper, fuller, more dynamic manifestation of yourself. It supports your evolution as a human being, your personal growth. So we also do it because it has very, very powerful ramifications in setting up a condition, that witness condition, in order to allow for our wholeness to start to manifest and be performed and to be expressed in this human condition, in this human place. And what we found is that the name of the game when it comes to personal transformation, or this thing that some people covet call enlightenment, or waking up, when we invest in that direction, in finding out our human potential and seeing how magnificent we can be and what magnificence we can express, it very much helps to have this witness awareness in relationship to this discovery process, to exploring new territory and kind of playing in new territory. Really allows for a lot more progress to be made rather than hemming and hawing about it. Because here's a really quick example of what can oftentimes happen. You can be a person who's been meditating for a while and doing this meditative stuff. You can be exploring different territories of maybe your different line of intelligence. You can explore, some typologies, your sex, your gender, your socioeconomic structures, your Enneagram, your horoscope, whatever types of things that are coming up that you invest in. You can be exploring this territory, and it may be kind of scary too, because you've never gone in that direction. There may be a lot of hangups in relationship to those things because you've never gone in those directions. And this is where witness consciousness meditation can actually be very helpful. If you reside as witness, you can feel that fear and feel the uncertainty and feel the concern. And you also can make a choice about whether you want to go forwards that way. And you can feel that, you can have those experiences, and then you can uncover why they're there. And then you can still choose to go and explore. So exploring the world, exploring yourself as witness, as the witness that you are, your inherent nature as witness, actually makes exploration that much more enjoyable, because you're not locked up in anxiety, you're not locked up in some fear, you're not locked up in some some crazy, some odd little story that you're telling yourself about it's okay or it's not okay to explore and all that jazz. So being able to anchor into witness decreases the amount of agitation you're going to get from the identity, and you're going to be able to just take the information that comes up from that as just information, and I can still go and explore, and that's still okay. So witness, being able to doing a regular practice where you are kind of truly kind of honoring your original condition, which is witness awareness, that's can actually improve your exploratory experience and give yourself permission to actually be a human in the face of these things. And that is a very, very powerful type of a tool. That's a very powerful direction to go. And that's a very powerful bit of information to carry. So this is why we are interested in doing this WCM. And this is why we're interested in doing this primarily, because what we found is that the reason we don't suggest visualization, active imagination type meditation, or visualization meditation, or aligning your chakras and only focusing on energetic movements. These things are valuable, but these things are cleaning up of, this is the act of refining and cleaning up the identity. It doesn't get you out of your identity. And actually, let me rephrase that. It gets you out of your identity over a very long process of deduction. So what I mean by that is you can align your chakras. You can spend 5 or 6 years playing with your chakras and playing with your energetic system and working that and trying to make sure that you get all your chakras aligned, or whatever your lineage tells you to do. You can do a long period of time of training with that, and what you will notice is that the nature of the chakras is that they just fucking move. They respond to reality. They respond to existence. They respond to what's happening in the environment. And they do have basic patterns, but those basic patterns, guess what? They come from your history. They come from your lifestyle, how you've been raised. Your chakra system is not enlightenment. Aligning your chakra system is not enlightenment. And aligning your chakra system is cleaning up your ego, cleaning up your identity, cleaning up your habitual behaviors, okay? It doesn't, and only through doing that enough will you realize aligning your chakras is not enlightenment. And aligning your chakras is not what we're pointing to as a very valuable thing. It's just cleaning up your identity. It's just refining your identity. It has nothing to do with actually awakening to your true nature. And if it does, it means that you've looked at these chakras enough to realize, holy shit, I'm more than this chakra system. This chakra system is just a system that's a part of this body, and I'm more than that. I'm much more than that. I'm more than my chakra system. I'm more than my physical body. I'm more than my mind. And so in the face of some of the greater teachings of transcendence and enlightenment, they oftentimes say, you are more than this body, you're more than this mind, you're more than this energetic system. And so it may take a long time for you to come to the conclusion of, oh, holy shit, what I'm doing is mostly just cleaning up my identity, which is still fucking a good idea. That's still a good plan. But don't confuse cleaning up your identity and managing your identity with awakening to your inherent nature. This is dangerous. This is a false equivalence. So you want to be really, really careful with this confusion. And this is a very common confusion in the world. So ITB is all for you cleaning up your identity. All for it. ITB is not for you confusing cleaning up your identity for awakening to your inherent nature of witness as emptiness. Okay? Those are two different things. It took me, and it's taken others, decades sometimes to recognize that they are not the same thing. All right. And sure as shit, I wish I would have had somebody sit me down and say, hey, this is the difference, and don't get caught up in the others 15 years ago, because that was, while that journey for me yielded information, it was a 10-year confusion. Okay. So we want to be really, really, really careful with that. We don't want to put other people through that. If you want to explore that territory, you can, but we're also going to give you information up front that says, hey, be mindful of this. So that's why we primarily suggest that you participate in doing this witness consciousness meditation, because other types of meditation, meditating on different archetypes, meditating on the nadis or the different energy channels in your body, meditating on angels or deities or guides or spirits, these are all valuable in their own way. But what the great traditions have pointed out is that they are good for managing the identity. They are good for working with your humanity. They do not, unless under guidance, they do not reveal your impermanence. What they do is they get you really good at managing your identity. And when it comes to really understanding your witness, really understanding the natural condition of your emptiness, and understanding the natural condition of this witness experience, what you realize is that it's not a game of management. To really start to relax and embed into and embrace your natural condition of witness consciousness, of witness awareness, of emptiness, you're not managing witness consciousness meditation. You're not managing the witness. You're not managing emptiness. Managing your identity is one thing, but that's not enlightenment. That's not waking up. That's not, connecting to your natural condition, all right, to your inherent nature. It is kind of a trick of the mind. So we really want to recognize how both are valuable, and the reason why we want you paying attention to witness consciousness meditation is because it is the one that is most readily, most speedily going to bring you to the realization of your inherent nature, which is emptiness, which is the ground of being, which is the condition in which all things arise. And so that's why we use WCM rather than some other techniques, and we identify those other techniques as useful for treating the identity and working with the identity. Cool. The next question that oftentimes comes up. I get so distracted by emotions, memories, and creativity. What should I do? Cool. Another one that comes along with this is I get distracted by a lot of these things, and should I therapize them? Should I stop and do shadow work and do that stuff? These are great questions. All right. So I get distracted by emotions, memories, and creativity. That is typical when you're doing these types of sits. That is typical. You're going to see emotions, memories, physical sensations, other sensory data arising, other human experience data arising. Other things are going to grab your attention from the outside world. And so this is extremely commonplace. The best thing that we suggest to you is give those components some type of permission to be, but not a focal point. So what that means is that if I'm sitting in meditation and I'm surrendering my thoughts, my emotions, I'm not trying to be attached. I'm not trying to follow any one of those. Maybe sadness arises and I say, thank you, body. Thank you, sadness, for showing me you're here, but I'm going to focus on just listening right now. So sadness arises, it sits in our body and it does what it does. And then it kind of disappears, kind of moves on, turns into something else. So the human experience arrives as something else. A memory comes up and maybe we say, thanks. Okay, well, this memory is coming up. Thank you very much, memory. Thank you, human body and brain, for having this memory come up, but I'm going to focus on just listening. And I'm not going to give a lot of attention to that thing. So this is what we suggest on a regular basis when we're doing our sitting practice. It is not the time, and on the context of therapizing it, turning into a personal exploration practice, we suggest creating two types of times for that. Okay, so when you're doing the zazen, when you're sitting in zazen or sitting in witness meditation, we want you to be doing that. We want you to be residing as just listening, as just witnessing, just being present as that. Okay, not getting focused on any other prime thing, just allowing yourself to be a deep witness and deeply aware of whatever's arising in your environment. This takes practice 100%. Okay, so, but we suggest when you sit for that. If you also want to sit and watch what arises and maybe work as far as your therapy is concerned, if you want to sit silently in the face of some of the shadow work you're doing, we also are perfectly fine with that. That's actually a really helpful exercise in a lot of ways, is taking whatever shadow material you've been dealing with and sitting as a witness in looking at it and watching it, not fusing with it, but just kind of watching how it plays out and how it unfolds. This is a wonderful practice, but don't confuse the two. We suggest be very, very discerning about the difference between those two. One, if I'm just sitting and witnessing, just sitting as emptiness, that is the practice of exercising. That is a practice of sitting as witness. The other one is sitting as witness in the face of shadow material. Do not confuse those guys. I did that for a period of time. That was a bad idea. It caused some confusion as far as my nervous system. It also did not give me the benefits of a lot of the basic of what just sitting provides. So you want to be mindful as far as those two are is concerned. So keep that in mind as you go forwards, and remember that whatever arises during an actual sit, during your actual meditation time, not meditation in the face of shadow work, but meditation time, where you're sitting for those 20 to 40 minutes silently as witness, whatever arises, no matter how appealing it is, we thank it for arising. And then we just kind of watch it and give it permission to fade away, or thank it for arising and come back to saying, all right, now I'm choosing to listen right now. Now I'm choosing to just be in this condition of listening. And so this is a very helpful way to kind of work with this, especially in the beginning. Later on, these things will probably just arise and fall away, arise and fall away. You don't have to do a whole lot of the thanking part of the theatrics of it. You can just recognize, oh, I'm getting caught up in that creative line of thought, or oh, I'm getting caught up in that information that I recall earlier. I'm getting what some people in the New Age world and spiritual, not religious community, they sometimes talk about downloads that occur. Don't get caught up with the downloads. Just sit. The download will be there. The information will be there. Your creativity, the thing you're following that creative thought about, that's in there. But when you're sitting, just sit. All right. Don't mess around with a lot of this other shit. Just sit during that period of time. One of the ways, and I'll give you a personal example for this. Like, I was at a session, a week-long session, and we were on like day 4 or 5 of just sitting for 6 to 8 hours a day in meditation and silent meditation. We were in I was at 4 or 5, day 4 or 5, and I just was getting all these fucking awesome creative ideas. There's tons of creative information, tons of wonderful data, wonderful mental activity that was going on. And it was really hard work to not get caught up in those things, because those creative activities were very, very important to me. They really lit me up. They inspired me. And so, but as far as the guidelines for this WCM, the guidelines are, no matter what arises, focus on listening, focus on just that emptiness, come back to just listening, come back to just the experience of the witness, of the emptiness. Don't get caught up in anything arises, no matter how attractive, no matter how enjoyable, no matter how fulfilling, no matter how inspiring it may be. Let it arise and let it fall away. Let it arise and let it fall away. And this is the training. This is the education. And so that was a big thing for me. And so when those things arise, no matter what it is that comes up, remember, come back to, when you're sitting, just sit. The whole point of, literally the translation of Zazen is just sitting. So just sit your ass down and wait and be there and listen. Allow for these things to arise and fall away, but just sit. Okay. Don't solve anything. Don't make anything. Don't participate in any of that stuff. Especially in the beginning, just come back to listening. Just come back to witnessing. Just come back to sitting. And this is a great way to kind of regard that stuff. Therapizing it is fine. Just make sure you make a separate situation for it. There's no reason why you cannot come back to those things later on. So one of the things that happens for me is also, if I do need some creative push, or if I do have some questions in my life that I'm looking for some clarity on, I can hold those questions and sit with those questions with that as witness, and I will once again have that creativity come forth, and I'll be able to then use that creativity in order to navigate whatever discovery I'm involved in. And so understand that anything that arises during your sit is still in you. It's still there. If you do Zazen, if you're doing this meditation and creativity arises, if you don't pay attention to creativity, it doesn't mean that creativity is going to go away. It doesn't mean you're going to lose creativity. It just means that you're focusing on something else at that point in time through a conscious choice. Creativity is always within us. Every fucking human being has creativity in them, and just a matter of accessing it. And this may just be part of that process for you of learning how to access that stuff. And so we deeply support you paying attention to those types of things. All right, so the last question is just sitting all it is? Am I just supposed to sit? I'm going to give you all a secret here. I'm going to unveil a secret here. Yes and no. What I can say is that, what I can tell you is that this practice, doing WCM, goes through kind of like phases. The first phase is, for the beginner, is just learning how to get a sense of what the fuck witness is, of saying thank you to things that arise, kind of just training the mind in the beginning to not just get caught up and reactionary and impulsive about grabbing onto thoughts, feelings, ideas, sensations, different things along those lines. So in the beginning, it's just training the mind not to do that. The next phase can be something along the lines of where you're good at, you've kind of you've jumped through the hoop of you're not a victim of the mind so much, meaning you're not fused to or overly attached to thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, things that come up during that time. And you do have you do have a sense of that witness, and you can sit in that witness on a regular basis. You're going to struggle with that for a period of time. The third phase, you're going to be sitting as witness on a regular basis. Witness, it's going to start improving your life in different ways. You're going to start noticing that your normal, natural condition on a regular basis is going to be in a witness kind of a place. And then the fourth phase is going to be, you're going to make a big realization, is that witness is still a part of the identity. Witness is, to quote Ken Wilber, this was a beautiful fucking quote from Ken. One of his realizations and great insights came from his Roshi, and his Roshi said, the witness is the last stand of the identity of the ego. And so at some point in time, you'll make the realization of, holy shit, this witness is actually the last stand. It's actually the last gate to pass through in order to move into an even deeper experience of emptiness. And so that's the evolution of it. So as this person was writing this question, is this really all it is? Yes, it may seem like it's kind of a bummer. It's not as, I will agree with you. It's not as, WCM is not as much drama as and entertainment as a lot of the other visualization activities and moving energy through your system, grounding the chakra system, working with guides and power animals and different things along those lines. A lot of that is going to be the theater of the mind, the theater of the experience of humans. And those things, like I said, are valuable, and they are much more dramatic than what we do in the witness consciousness meditation practice. And that's also another contributing reason why people don't do a lot of it, is because it's not as entertaining for people. People do meditation to entertain themselves. And so, but in this situation with WCM, what we are wanting to do is recognize there are these phases of the experience, and everyone kind of starts out at this kind of first, second phase experience of relating to their mind, and, coming back to over and over and over and over again of just listening, of just witnessing. And then they hit a good space of that, and they may spend several years there. And then at some point in time, they will make that realization, that deep insight will come to them of, holy shit, this witness is actually just the last veil I have to pass through. It's the last surrendering. I have to actually surrender the witness in order to really get to the bottom of this whole, what is my true condition? What is the real nature of my reality and all of reality? And well, that's a surrendering of the witness. But when it comes to ITB, this is one thing that we believe and we have found to be valuable, is that training you through that phase is actually helpful in relationship to being able to surrender the witness later on. We have found that if you have no idea what the witness is, you don't know what to surrender. And so it's almost like this educational learning curve situation, and it's difficult for an untrained person that has no context for this information. It's difficult for them to recognize the difference, recognize the experience that when you do surrender, witness, there's an emptiness. There's a true emptiness, and I'll use the term nothingness in relationship to the English language. There's a true emptiness. There's a true, like, nothing's there. You're not there anymore. It's not your experiences anymore. It's not, there's no I anymore. And so that, what that means from a real experiential level, not just a philosophical one, but from an experiential level, is very, very, very difficult to convey to other human beings that don't have any context for it. It just sounds poetic, which poetry is fucking phenomenal. And that doesn't help your case when you're facing a bunch of folks who have no context for something they want to learn a skill. So what we have found in ITB is that training you through this phase, through this arc of realization, sets you up for success better than me just waxing, or some other teacher just waxing philosophical or waxing poetically about this state they've attained that they expect you to figure out. To me, the fairest thing to do, especially to the general population who comes looking for this stuff, is to set a stage, is to set up information, is to play to the mind and play to the identity and to the ego, and give it an opportunity to make connection to this information so it doesn't just shut down. Because that's usually what happens to the folks that approach this stuff and they don't get any kind of grounds training. They just kind of shut down in the face of it, and they reduce it and belittle it, and it becomes useless, and you've just ruined a wonderful opportunity for their growth. Anywho, so that's the WCM stuff. So once again, if you have any questions, go to embodyingitb@gmail.com, mention this video, and then mention a question about WCM. Now we're going to talk about both. What are things that we show up? What are there frequently asked questions for both of these things at the same time? It may seem a little bit nitpicky, but this is what we got. Do I have to do both? Do you have to do both? Yes, you got to do both. We do suggest, if you're investing in, especially if you're going to make a claim that you're going to do ITB, that you're going to pick up ITB and participate in this stuff, yes, you need to do both. Doing both is going to just simply help your process. If you just do one and then stop doing that one and then do the other and then stop doing that one and go back to the other one, I'm not going to say this isn't valuable. Everybody's journey and path is kind of signature to them as far as their uncovering, claiming, and emerging process is concerned. But we do suggest the best practice is to do the two foundational practices together on a regular basis. And we understand I didn't call these the two foundational practices for kicks, for fun, okay? I called it the two foundational practices because if you don't do anything else of ITB, do these, okay? Everything else goes better if you do these. All right. I mean, shit, witness consciousness meditation is a whole damn pillar in ITB. So it's of great, I really want to convey how important it is to be able to do these practices, or to do these practices on a regular basis in tandem. So please don't separate them. Please don't, push them off months in between, where I'll do, I'll do the shadow work for about a month and then I'll do the meditation for a month. We see much better responses when you combine them together. If you want to do them on different days, perfectly fine, but don't spread it into months or several months or years or different things like that. That seems to be very, very problematic for folks. So do them both on a regular basis. And you will definitely see some powerful stuff happening for you, 100%. Teacher, coach, team, do I need any of those? Who should I get? So this is a very important question. The conversation of a teacher is a kind of in some circles, is a controversial one. You do not need a teacher to self-explore. Okay, I'll come clean with that. You do not need a teacher, a coach, a guide in order for you to self-explore. There's enough reading material out there, workshops, YouTube videos. There's plenty of shit out there to kind of walk you through that. Okay, it's not essential. Okay, does it help? Yes, it helps. Okay, so does it help you? Can you do it on your own? Can you use videos and other medium to kind of self-explore? Yes, 100%. yes, you can do some of this stuff. You can understand some of these things through videos and different mediums and stuff like that. You can get information and get pretty good bits of information and some and guidance from WCM WCM videos or data, shadow data or worksheets or different things along those lines. You can get some good stuff as far as that's concerned. It'll go even better if you have a teacher, coach, or team. Okay. Especially, I mean, and honestly, a teacher for the witness consciousness meditation stuff is of great importance. Someone who is a lot more experienced than you, a lot more skilled. And in this case, the teacher is there mostly to point out, you know, mess ups, essentially pitfalls. They're not there to really make you enlightened. That's not kind of how this works. They're not there to tell you how to be a certain way. They are there to embody their realization. And so there can be a sharing or quote unquote a transmission as far as that's concerned. They are there to show you talk to you about what will happen as it unfolds, to embody what will happen if it unfolds, to embody that. So they'll be able to say, yes, this is something that happens. This is something that you can expect. This is the kind of mind you'll be able to expect as you go through this process. They're also there to point out pitfalls, like I mentioned this pitfall earlier of me getting wrapped up with the confusion that aligning my chakra system and cleaning my chakra system was the same as transcendence or enlightenment or waking to my true nature. That it wasn't, and that was a pitfall. And if I had a meditation teacher that was a witness meditation teacher, they would have been able to point that out and been able to make that clarity and that definition, that defining difference. And so that would have been something that would have been really great if I had that in my world. And it was so that teachers are helpful in that context. Teachers don't really make you enlightened. They shouldn't be telling you how to live your life. A teacher at this stage in our culture, at the societal development, especially here in the States or the Western world, a teacher and or a meditation teacher or a Roshi or a guru should not be telling you how you should do your life. They shouldn't be telling you who you should have friendships with, romantic partners, how you should spend your money. They shouldn't be telling you how to do your life. A witness, a meditation teacher should be teaching you and talking to you about meditation. That's it. That's what they ought to be doing. And so that's very, very helpful. And if the meditation teacher just happens to have some other skill sets in some other areas, then they might be able to help you out with, some personal transformation stuff, with doing some shadow work or something else along those lines. So having a teacher, a coach, and or a team is very helpful. As we kind of touched on earlier, doing this with a team is super duper helpful. Another reason to do it with a team, whether it's online or whether it's in a physical kind of physical space together. The other thing is that the team can support your momentum. All right. So we use the term container when we get into a group and we start doing this stuff. We call this a container. The container carries us. So not one person is solely responsible for the container. We all are responsible for the container. And when we get a bunch of people sitting together to do shadow work or meditation, or this type of meditation, then we get this really kind of sweet kind of thing that's happening in the container. The group of us, the collective of us, are kind of feeding off of each other's momentum and work. And if one of us starts to be having a hard time with that shadow material or with doing the witness work, then being with other people who are feeling it can support that, who are doing well with that shadow material, who are doing well with that witness work, that witness meditation. That helps, that kind of galvanizes us and supports us and nurtures us towards continuing to move on and different things along those lines. And so a container, a teacher, a container, a team can be very, very helpful for you. And we do suggest that stuff, and we do suggest gathering for that. Man, especially for the shadow. Let me say for the shadow, if you're gathering with a team that does shadow work, the beautiful thing that happens with shadow is that we all of us have primarily a lot of the same shadow material. And the other reality is that when we process shadow, it's strikingly similar. So there is the uncovering, there is the then claiming, and then there is the emerging that happens. It's a natural pattern of what occurs when we do shadow work. And since we share so much in common, as far as shadow is concerned, watching someone else go through their shadow material and pull apart their shadow and work with their shadow, watching someone else make their realizations with their shadow and doing the work of the shadow work actually helps us do our shadow work as well. It heals us in a little bit of a different way. And I would even go so far as saying it's a type of shadow work, watching someone else go through it. Because we empathize so much, because we're such social creatures, it really does create an opportunity for our own material. Or if we're watching someone work with a certain type of trauma, even if that trauma is not identical to ours, but we have kind of maybe some similar qualities, that our trauma may surface, and we may be able to actually heal some of that together. As they're healing that, as they're working with that, we can actually work that, and we can get some work done in relationship to that as well, and also be supported in healing it and integrating it, I should say, and not healing it, but integrating it into our hearts and receiving it into our hearts. So doing a team can be very, very potent for a lot of reasons. Coaches, teachers, teams, they can be very, very potent and very helpful in different ways. Can you do a lot of this stuff on your own? 100%, but it's going to have its limits, and where those limits are, you can break through those limits with a teacher, coach, or team. So food for thought with both of those guys. Do I need to do these? And this kind of reflects the first question here. Do I need to do these in order to do ITB? Technically, no. I mean, hell, you can pick up, you can, go to our website, you can find our inspirations of the pillars. Every pillar has other human beings around the world throughout history that have inspired the pillars, have inspired those domains of investigation. You can totally just go to those pillars and investigate those pillars, and from a knowledge and from a position of wanting to gather knowledge and information, just go ahead and gather that those names and those human beings that have inspired us, those traditions that have inspired the pillars, and explore them. I mean, by all means, they're not Jeff's. I mean, Jeff didn't create Integral. Jeff didn't create bodywork. Jeff didn't create witness consciousness meditation. Jeff did not create raw communication. All these pillars are already standing pillars in consciousness and in the human domain. What I did was I simply brought them together in through a system and started talking about how they relate to each other. So no, you don't have to do the 2 foundational practices in order to benefit from at least the informational knowledge gathering portion of ITB. If you decide to pick up ITB as a life practice, on the other hand, I would very strongly suggest you get your ass into doing these 2 foundational practices. It's a big difference when you take it from information gathering into embodiment or actual experience. There's a huge night and day difference. So it'll be important for you to actually participate in those 2 foundational practices if you actually decide to actually take up ITB as a practice, as a way of recovering or way of personal transformation. So these are our frequently asked questions. These are what has come up over the past several years, and in the past week or so, what I've been talking about this recording coming up. So thank you very much for your time. And once again, over and over and over and over and over again, if you have a question, anything about ITB, from this video or this month's activities, or any video you see on this YouTube channel, please feel free, just reference the YouTube video, reference the video, give me your question, write out to embodyingitb@gmail.com, and I will do my best to within 24 hours to respond to that and create an opportunity for that question to be talked about, or that query to be worked with a little bit. Okay. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. You want to learn more about ITB, go to embodyingitb.org. There's tons of information there. Once again, if you're interested in this stuff, we at ITB have several coaches for you to choose from. They are stewards of ITB, people who have been trained for at least 5 years underneath me. We got a couple, both of the stewards right now that are doing coaching are both been with me for about a decade now. So they are highly skilled and highly capable in their own ways. So please, if this stuff is interesting to you, please, please, please make contact with them, make contact with us. And if you don't feel comfortable with us, bring it to your own counselors, bring it to your own coaches, and do this work. Please, 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 please. We also make a little bit off of our donations. So if these videos, any of these videos have contributed to your well-being, if you find them to be helpful, if they've supported you in some form or fashion, please feel free to support us. You can go to Venmo and look for at Jeffrey West 6. And you will find me there. You can go to PayPal and find, what's it called? Look up Embodying ITB on PayPal. You should find us there, or look up Integral Transformative Bodywork. You should find us there. And you can make donations through that avenue. Join us for this fun stuff. We're all about it, and this is what our life is like. So if you can donate, donate. If you can't, that's perfectly fine too. Keep showing up and spend some time with us, all right? Blessings to you. Get tons of rest. Eat, drink, sleep, make contact with other human beings, support yourself, make sure you care for yourself. There's a lot of stress going on in the world. You are totally worth it. Your recovery is a beautiful thing, and your recovery impacts the rest of the world. So please, please, please invest in that self-care, invest in that recovery process. We're here for you if you need us. So hop on and join at your leisure, okay? All right, my name is Jeff Koshin West. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next Sunday, October, and we'll see more about that shit later, okay? All right, thank you very much.